After a full day of teaching at the public school, I came home exhausted. I saw a new lock on the pantry. "It's so you don't touch our things," my daughter-in-law said without looking at me. I smiled without saying anything. The next day, the padlock was gone, and in its place, I left a letter. One that made her hands tremble as she read it. Yes, that's right. Just as you're hearing it, a padlock. In my own house. On the pantry I had built myself 25 years ago, when my Arthur was still breathing, and this house smelled like fresh coffee and pastries in the morning. But let me tell you from the beginning, because this story doesn't start with a padlock. It starts long before, when I still believed that being a good mother meant giving everything without expecting anything in return. My name is Eleanor. I am 67 years old, and for 42 of them, I was an elementary school teacher at Lincoln Elementary in the Jefferson Park neighborhood. I taught over 800 children to read. I gave them kindness when their own homes didn't. And I never, ever imagined that my own son would make me feel like an intruder in the place where I raised 3 children and buried a husband. That Tuesday, I arrived tired. My legs ached after standing all afternoon supervising recess. I was 65 then, just about to retire. I came in through the back door, as always, and went straight to the pantry to get the vanilla wafers I kept for my afternoon tea. My one little treat after a long day. And there it was, a new, shiny, silver padlock hanging from the door of my pantry, as if it were the most normal thing in the world. I froze. My purse slipped from my shoulder. For a second, I thought I was in the wrong house, that I'd walked into the wrong door, but no. There was the cracked tile by the stove that Arthur never got around to fixing. There were the basil plants in the window. It was my kitchen. My house. Then I heard her voice. "Oh, you're home." Claire walked into the kitchen, drying her hands on a dish towel. She was wearing that pink blouse that, according to her, cost $250 at a boutique downtown. The same amount of money I spent on groceries for the entire week. "What is this?" I asked, pointing to the lock. My voice came out softer than I wanted. I still didn't understand what I was seeing. She didn't even look up. "Oh, that. Ryan and I bought some special things for us. You know, imported goods, organic olive oil, that sort of thing. And, well, we don't want them getting mixed up with the other stuff. It's just to avoid problems." To avoid problems? As if I were the problem? "But, Claire, this is my pantry, my house." She finally looked at me, and in those brown eyes that I once thought were sweet, I saw only coldness. "Oh, Eleanor, don't take it personally. It's just organization. You have your space, we have ours. It's the healthiest way to live together, don't you think? My space. In my own house. As if I were a tenant they were tolerating. I wanted to scream, to rip that lock off and throw it out the window. But something inside me, that part that was always a teacher, the part that learned to measure every word, made me hold my tongue. I smiled. "Of course, dear, whatever you say." And I went to my room. I didn't cry that night. I was too furious to cry. I sat on the bed I shared with Arthur for 38 years. And for the first time in 3 years, I allowed myself to see clearly what I had been ignoring. My house was no longer mine. It hadn't happened overnight. It was like mold growing in the walls. You don't see it until it's everywhere. If this story is stirring something inside you, subscribe to the channel. Because what comes next, not even I saw it coming. 3 years ago, when Arthur died of a heart attack while watering his geraniums, my world collapsed. I didn't just lose my husband. I lost the sound of his footsteps in the morning, the smell of his aftershave when he got ready. That way he'd hug me from behind while I was cooking. The house became a giant echo. Ryan, my youngest son, came to the funeral with Claire. They had been married for 2 years. He hugged me and said, "Mom, we're not going to leave you alone. We'll move in with you until you're feeling better." Temporary, he said, just until I got back on my feet. But temporary turned into a month, then 6, then a year. And suddenly, 3 years had passed, and not only had they not left, they had taken complete possession. At first, it was subtle. Claire started to help by reorganizing the kitchen. "It's just more practical this way, Eleanor." My grandmother's Blue Ridge china ended up shoved in a top cabinet I couldn't even reach. My old, seasoned cast-iron skillets were replaced with Teflon pans, which she said were healthier. Then came the furniture. "That armchair is so old, Eleanor. We're going to donate it." And my brown armchair, where Arthur read the Sunday paper every week, disappeared. In its place, they put a modern gray sofa that was nice, yes, but it wasn't mine. The living room became their home office. My sewing room was filled with boxes of her things. The dining room, where we celebrated every birthday, every Christmas, was now decorated with abstract art I hadn't chosen. And I, like an idiot, let it happen. Because I thought it was love, that they were helping me modernize, that this was just life with young people. But the lock was different. The lock was a message. That night, lying in the dark, I remembered something I told a student years ago. Her name was Daisy, and her older sister treated her badly. She took her things, made her feel invisible in her own family. "Daisy," I told her, "never let anyone make you feel small in your own life, not even for love." And I had done exactly that. I looked at the ceiling. The shadows from the street lamp moved like ghosts. And then, for the first time in a long time, I felt something stronger than sadness. I felt rage. And that rage, I would soon discover, was exactly what I needed to wake up. Because what Claire didn't know is that teachers learn to read between the lines. And I had just read her message perfectly. What she also didn't know was that I knew how to write, too. Wait until you see what I did with that lock, and what I discovered later, on his laptop. The next day, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't had in years. Like when you take off dirty glasses and suddenly see all the details you'd been ignoring. I got up early, as always. I made my coffee in the old drip coffee maker they still allowed me to use, because the Italian pod machine was just for them. I sat in the small space left for me at the breakfast table, and I started to remember. It wasn't sudden. It was like water eroding stone, drop by drop, until you don't recognize your own home. I let my mind travel back 3 years, to the day of Arthur's funeral. It was unbearably hot for November. Street, James Church was packed. Fellow teachers, neighbors, his buddies from poker night, the ladies at the corner store where he bought his cigars on the sly because I nagged him about them. Ryan arrived with Claire. She wore a simple black dress, and her hair pulled back. She hugged me gently and said, "I'm here for whatever you need, Eleanor." Her voice sounded sincere, or maybe I just needed to believe it was. After the burial, when everyone had gone and the house was left in that awful silence only the newly widowed know, Ryan took my hands. "Mom, you can't stay alone. Not now. I'll be fine, son. Your father taught me to be strong." "I know, but we're going to stay with you for a while. Just until you get back on your feet. The house is huge. We have plenty of space." Claire nodded at his side, with that smile that seemed kind to me then. "It's temporary, Eleanor. A few months, tops. Besides, this way we can save for a down payment on our own house, and you won't be alone. It's perfect for everyone." Perfect for everyone. What a well-wrapped lie. The first few days were good. Claire cooked, cleaned, and accompanied me to parent-teacher conferences when I didn't have the energy to go alone. Ryan fixed things around the house that had been broken for years. The water heater, the lock on the garden gate, the leak in the bathroom, I felt accompanied. Less empty. But the third week, Claire started with her suggestions. "Oh, Eleanor, these curtains are so old. What if we buy new ones? I have a really good eye for decorating." They were the terracotta-colored curtains Arthur and I had picked out when we remodeled the living room, matching the tile floors. But I was so emotionally exhausted I just said, "Fine, dear, whatever you think." A week later, my terracotta curtains were in the trash. In their place, there were minimalist white ones that let in too much light and made the room feel cold. Then came the dining room. "These landscape paintings are so dated. Look, I bought these at a gallery. Modern art. It gives the room personality." The landscapes were from our honeymoon trip up the coast to Maine. Every time I saw them, I remembered him in that little inn, laughing because we had gotten lost looking for a plaza. But when I protested timidly, Claire had already packed them. "Don't worry, I put them in a box. Maybe you'll want to see them someday." Someday. As if my own history were optional in my own house. The changes kept coming like waves, each one small, each one well-intentioned. My collection of china. It takes up too much space. Let's put it up top. My plants in the garden. They're too messy. I'm going to reorganize them. The bookcase in the living room with Arthur's novels. These books are ancient. Should we donate them? And I, still stunned by grief, just nodded. Because I thought I was being difficult, old-fashioned, clinging to the past. But the real change came when they started modifying the routines. Sundays used to be sacred in this house. My two daughters, Sarah and Emily, would come with my grandchildren. We'd make a big pot roast or chili, whatever we felt like. The house would fill with laughter, with kids running around, with that beautiful chaos of a family gathered. 3 weeks after they moved in, Claire suggested, "What if we do these dinners every other Sunday? Ryan and I really need our Sundays to rest." Then it was, "What if we make it monthly?" And then they just stopped. One Sunday, Sarah showed up unannounced with a cake and flowers. Claire opened the door in her pajamas, looking annoyed. "Oh, Sarah, we didn't know you were coming. We don't have anything prepared. Ryan and I were just about to head out." My daughter looked for me. I was in the kitchen, embarrassed, not knowing what to say. "I thought we still did family dinners," Sarah said, her voice tight. "Well, we all live together now. We just need to coordinate better, don't you think?" Coordinate. As if seeing my own daughter required an appointment. Sarah left the cake on the table, gave me a cold kiss on the cheek, and left. She didn't come back for 2 months. My friends got the same treatment. My best friend, Carol, who I'd had coffee with every Thursday for 20 years, stopped coming. The last time she arrived, Claire was doing yoga in the living room with techno music blasting. "Oh, sorry, Carol. I didn't know you were coming. This is my workout time." Carol, uncomfortable among the yoga mats and the incense Claire had lit, drank her coffee quickly and left. "You should let me know when your friends are coming," Claire told me later, not looking up from her phone, "so I don't have to interrupt my schedule." Her schedule. In my living room. In my house. Little by little, my social life vanished, and with it vanished the witnesses to what was happening. But the worst was yet to come. The worst was when I started to notice that Claire wasn't just changing the house, she was changing my son. Ryan had always been affectionate. He used to call me every other day before they moved in. He'd ask how I was, tell me about his job at the hardware store, make bad jokes that made me smile. But now, living under the same roof, he barely spoke to me. He'd get home late from work and go straight to their room. If I tried to ask about his day, he'd answer in monosyllables. "Fine. Tired. We'll talk later." But later never came. One night, I heard them arguing in their bedroom. The wall was thin. "Your mom asked if we can take her to the doctor on Tuesday," Ryan said. "Why?" "She's a grown woman. She can go by herself." "Claire, she's my mom." "Exactly. She's your mom, not mine. I have enough to do working and keeping this house in order. I'm not going to be her nurse, too." There was silence. I waited for Ryan to defend me. I waited for him to say something, anything, but he said nothing. And in that silence, I understood something terrible. My son was choosing her over me, not dramatically or cruelly, just with silence, with absence, with letting her speak without contradicting her. I got into bed trembling, not from cold, but from helpless rage. The next day, I went to the doctor alone, and just like that, I was alone at the grocery store, alone at parent-teacher conferences even though I was about to retire, alone in this full house that felt emptier every day. Claire started cooking only for herself and Ryan. She said it was because they were on a special diet. They left their dirty dishes for me to wash. They occupied the living room TV for their shows. They played music I didn't understand. They had visitors they didn't introduce me to. And I just got smaller, a little more invisible each day in my own life. Until the lock, and that lock was the last straw, because I realized something. They weren't sharing my house. They were taking it from me. You can't believe it, but what they didn't know is that I still had an ace up my sleeve, something not even Ryan knew about. My son looked at me like I was a piece of old furniture in the way, and that hurt more than 1,000 locks. Ryan was born on a July dawn, with thunder outside and my hand squeezing Arthur's until it turned purple. It was a difficult birth. 36 hours of labor. But when I first held him on my chest, with his little eyes barely open and that cry that tore my soul. I swore I would protect him from everything. I never imagined that one day I would need to protect myself from him. Or rather, from his silence. Because Ryan didn't hurt me with shouts or insults. He hurt me by disappearing, by becoming a ghost who lived in my house but no longer lived with me. It was Wednesday. I remember because on Wednesdays I got home from school early, at 2 in the afternoon, and I used to find him in the kitchen having lunch. We would talk about everything, about his job at the hardware store, how the customers were, about that boss who, according to him, didn't even know how to use a screwdriver. But that Wednesday, 3 days after the lock incident, I came home and the house was silent. Claire wasn't home. Ryan was. I saw him sitting in the living room, scowling at his phone. "Son," I said from the doorway, "have you eaten? I can make us some eggs and bacon." He barely looked up. "Not hungry, Mom, thanks," and went back to his screen. I stood there, my bag still on my shoulder, feeling like I had just spoken to a wall. "Are you okay?" "Yeah." "Something happen at work?" "No." "Ryan, look at me." He sighed. That long sigh you use when someone is bothering you. He put the phone down on the couch and finally looked at me, but his eyes were empty, as if he saw me but didn't recognize me. "What is it, Mom?" "That's what I'm asking you. We don't talk anymore. You don't tell me anything. You live here, but it's like you're not here." He ran his hand through his hair, that gesture he'd made since he was a kid when he was uncomfortable. "I'm just tired. Work is tough. Don't take it personally." "Don't take it personally." The same words Claire used about the lock. "What about Sunday? Sarah told me you invited her and her family for lunch, but you didn't tell me." His face changed. He tensed up. "It was a last-minute thing. I thought you had plans." "What plans would I have? I live here. This is my house." "Mom." "Don't start." "Start what? Wanting to talk to my own son?" He stood up from the couch. He wasn't looking me in the eye anymore. "Look, Claire and I are trying to build our life. We need space. We can't always be thinking about, you know." "About me? You can't be thinking about me?" "It's not that." "Then what is it?" Silence. That damned silence that had become his answer for everything. "I have to go," he said finally. "Claire is waiting for me." And he left. Just like that, leaving me with words stuck in my throat and my heart in pieces. That night I couldn't sleep. I just stared at the ceiling, remembering the boy Ryan used to be. The one who would climb into my bed when he had nightmares. The one who drew pictures for me in elementary school and proudly taped them to the fridge. The one who would hug me tight and say, "When I grow up, I'm going to build you a huge house, Mom. With a big yard and everything." Where did that boy go? The following days were worse. Ryan started avoiding me completely. He'd leave before I got up. He'd come home late when I was already in my room. And when we did cross paths in the kitchen or the hallway, he'd look down and hurry past, as if I were an inconvenient stranger. But what finally broke me was what I discovered a week later. It was Saturday morning. Claire had left early for the salon. That weekly routine that she claimed was essential and cost $200 every time. Ryan was in the shower, and I, tidying the living room as I always did, found a manila envelope forgotten between the sofa cushions. I didn't want to snoop. I really didn't. But the envelope had the bank's logo, and it was open. Inside was a bank statement. My son's. And there was also a piece of paper in his handwriting. A note he had written to me 2 years ago, when he asked to borrow money. My hands started to tremble as I read it. "Mom, I promise I'll pay you back the $80,000 as soon as we get the loan approved. It's for the down payment on our house. Claire and I already found a perfect place out in Highlands Ranch. We're so excited to start. I swear on Dad's memory, I'll pay you back. Love, Ryan." $80,000. The savings Arthur and I had put together for years for our retirement. The money I was saving for emergencies, so I wouldn't be a burden to anyone in my old age. I lent it to him because he was my son, because I trusted him, because he told me it was for his house. But according to the bank statement in my hands, dated just 1 month prior, there was no house. There was a charge for $70,000 to Premium Auto Group. A car. They had bought a luxury SUV with my money and the bank loan, and they never told me. I felt the floor move. I sat down on the sofa because my legs wouldn't hold me. I read the statement over and over, looking for some mistake, some explanation other than the obvious one. But there was no mistake. My son had lied to me. He had used me. He had taken my life savings and spent it on a whim to please his wife. I heard the shower turn off, Ryan's footsteps approaching. I quickly put the papers back in the envelope and left it where it was. When he came out, his hair wet and a towel around his neck, he looked at me, surprised. "Oh, you're here?" "Yes. Just tidying up." He nodded, uncomfortable. He went to the sofa, grabbed the envelope without a word, and went to his room. He didn't even pretend to explain. That afternoon, when Claire returned with her hair freshly styled and her nails painted bright red, I saw her differently. I watched her get into that brand new gray SUV parked outside, the one they supposedly bought with their savings. With my savings, and something inside me broke for good. It wasn't just the money. It was the betrayal. It was knowing that my own son saw me as a bank, as someone he could take from without giving back, as someone whose needs didn't matter. That night, while they ate dinner in the kitchen, talking and laughing as if nothing was wrong, I stayed in my room. I didn't cry. I was out of tears. Instead, I felt something cold and clear, a decision forming like ice in my chest. I opened my closet, moved the old shoeboxes, and I took out the blue tin box my mother left me before she died. Inside were things Ryan didn't know about. Things Claire could never imagine. Documents, deeds, and a will that was still in my favor. Because it turns out my son had forgotten something very important. This house had an owner, and that owner was still alive, still sane. And now, she was very, very angry. What came next, neither of us saw coming. But when I did it, it changed everything forever. In the back of my closet, I kept something they didn't know existed. My real power. The blue tin box was barely a foot long. It had faded flowers painted on the lid and a small dent in the corner. A souvenir from when it was dropped during the move to this house 25 years ago. To anyone else, it was just an old, worthless object. But to me, it was a war chest. I took it out that Saturday night, after discovering the truth about the money. I placed it on my bed carefully, like someone unearthing something sacred. My hands trembled as I opened the rusty lid. The smell of old paper hit me first. Then I saw what was inside. Yellowed envelopes, carefully folded documents, photographs, and a black notebook with frayed corners. My mother's notebook. There, in her slanted, precise handwriting, were all the lessons she gave me before she died. Eleanor, she told me on her last lucid day, her eyes already dimmed by the cancer, but her voice firm. Never, ever, let anyone think you're stupid just because you're kind. Kindness is not weakness, and a woman who knows when to stay silent is more dangerous than 100 screaming men. I smiled, remembering her. My mother had been a teacher too, and she taught me that information is power. I pulled out the first document, the deed to the house. Original, sealed, notarized. In my name, Eleanor Monica Reynolds, widow. Not a single letter mentioned Ryan or Claire or anyone else. This house was mine, completely. No debt, no mortgage, no conditions. I had inherited it from my parents when they passed, and Arthur and I had remodeled it with our own savings. Every brick, every window, every tile in the bathroom had been paid for with the sweat of 2 teachers who worked for 40 years without stopping. Ryan knew that, or at least he used to. But maybe Claire had made him forget, or maybe he had chosen to forget because it was convenient to think this house would be his someday. I pulled out the second document, my will. I had made it 5 years ago, when Arthur and I decided to get our affairs in order. Back then, it left the house divided equally among my 3 children, Ryan, Sarah, and Emily. But that will could be changed, and a dark part of me, one that had been dormant for too long, began to consider that possibility very seriously. I kept looking. Copies of the utility bills, water, gas, property taxes, all in my name. All paid by me for the last 3 years, despite the $200 a month Ryan and Claire contributed, which barely covered their groceries. $200. A joke. The property taxes alone were $800 every quarter. The electric, $200. The gas, $100. Maintenance, repairs, unexpected costs. I paid for all of it with my teacher's pension. My $2,500 a month pension, evaporating to maintain a house for 3 people where only I was contributing real money. But the most interesting thing was at the bottom of the box. A white business card with blue lettering. Patrick Nolan, attorney at law, family and estate law. Patrick had been my student in 3rd grade, over 30 years ago. A skinny, serious kid who always read during recess. Now he was one of the most respected lawyers in the state. And he owed me. I had convinced his mother not to pull him out of school when she wanted to put him to work. "Miss Reynolds," he'd said at Arthur's funeral, squeezing my hand tightly. "Anything you need, whatever it is, just call. You changed my life." I looked at the card, then at the documents. And then, for the first time in weeks, I felt something that wasn't sadness or rage. He felt control. The next morning, Sunday, I waited for Ryan and Claire to leave. They had plans to have brunch with her parents. Another one of those gatherings I was never invited to. As soon as I heard the car pull away, I picked up my phone and dialed Patrick's number. He answered on the 3rd ring. "Miss Reynolds? Patrick, dear, I'm sorry to bother you on a Sunday." "You are never a bother. Are you okay? Did something happen?" The genuine concern in his voice almost made me cry. It had been so long since someone had truly worried about me. "I need your help. I need to review some documents, and maybe make some changes." There was a pause. "Changes to your will?" "Among other things." "May I ask what's going on?" And then, sitting there on my bed with the blue box open in front of me, I told him everything. The lock, the humiliations, the $80,000, the way my own home had become a prison where I was the intruder. Patrick listened without interrupting. When I finished, his silence was different. It wasn't discomfort. It was calculation, thought, planning. "Miss Reynolds, do you have proof of all this?" "I have receipts. I have the bank statement I found. I have text messages where Ryan promised to pay me back." "And the house is entirely in your name?" "Completely. No debt. Nothing." "Perfect." His voice sounded firmer. "Then here's what we're going to do." For the next hour, Patrick explained a plan. It wasn't revenge. It was protection. It was setting legal boundaries that Claire and Ryan couldn't break. First, update my will with a different notary. One they didn't know. Leave everything to my daughters, with a special clause. Ryan could only inherit if he paid me back the $80,000 before my death. If he didn't, his share would be divided between Sarah and Emily. Second, get a notarized inventory of all my assets inside the house. Furniture, appliances, jewelry, everything. To make it clear what was mine and what was theirs. Third, prepare a legal ultimatum. If they didn't start paying a fair rent calculated at $5,000 a month, which was cheap for a house this size, or leave within 3 months, I could start eviction proceedings. "But Patrick," I said, my voice breaking, "he's my son." "I know, Miss Reynolds. And that's why I'm giving him options that don't involve kicking him out on the street tomorrow. But you have to protect yourself. What they are doing to you, it's not love. It's abuse." That word hit me like cold water. Abuse. Was that what it was? Could you call it abuse when it came from your own child? "Think about it," Patrick continued. "But don't take too long. The longer you wait, the harder it will be to get your house and your peace back." We hung up. I sat on the bed, surrounded by papers, feeling like I had just crossed an invisible line. But the line had already been crossed. Just not by me. I put everything back in the blue box. I hid it in the back of the closet, behind the winter boxes that no one ever touched. When Ryan and Claire came home that afternoon, they found me in the kitchen, making chicken soup, as always. Like the harmless old woman they thought I was. "Smells good," Ryan said, surprised to see me cooking. "I thought we were on a diet," Claire added with a sharp tone. I smiled. That smile I had perfected over 40 years of dealing with difficult parents. "It's just for me. You two do your own thing." Claire blinked, confused by my neutral tone. Ryan looked at me with something that almost resembled guilt, but neither said anything, and I just kept stirring my soup, calm, while in my mind, the pieces of a chessboard they didn't even know existed were already moving, because I had learned something important. The person who shouts the loudest doesn't always win. Sometimes, the winner is the one who knows how to wait in silence, with a teacher's patience and a surgeon's precision. And I had waited long enough. But before I could make my next move, something happened that almost ruined everything. Something that made me question if I really knew the people I was living with. That day, in front of the whole family, they treated me like I was nothing. But I just let them talk. Because every word was just more rope to hang themselves with. Ryan's birthday, 35 years old. Before, those dates were sacred in our family. Arthur would wake up early to hang colorful streamers. I would bake his favorite angel food cake with strawberries. Sarah and Emily would arrive with brightly wrapped presents and hugs that lasted forever. But this year was different. "I'm organizing something small," Claire told me 2 weeks before, while painting her nails in the living room. "Just us and my family. Something intimate." "What about the girls?" I asked, meaning my daughters. "Oh, Eleanor, you know how they are. They always end up arguing over silly things. Better to avoid the drama." They didn't argue over silly things. They argued because Claire treated them with the same contempt she treated me. But Ryan never defended them. "And the food?" I tried again. "Can I make the special lasagna Ryan loves, or—" "Don't worry. I'm catering everything. You just relax." Relax. As if I were a guest in my own house, at my own son's birthday. The day arrived. Saturday, April 23rd. That sticky mid-year heat. Early that morning, Claire started transforming the house. She took down the paintings I had discreetly rehung. She put out modern centerpieces with artificial flowers. She changed the tablecloths to minimalist gray ones that, according to her, matched the decor. I watched her from the kitchen doorway, invisible, as she commanded and organized in my house as if it were hers. "Ryan, move that chair." "No, not there. More to the corner." "Perfect." My son obeyed without a word, moving furniture from one side to the other, sweating in his white t-shirt. "Do you need help?" I offered. Claire didn't even turn around. "No, we're almost done." "Oh, actually, could you go to your room while we set up? We're using the living room, and we don't want anything in the way." Anything in the way. Or anyone. I went to my room like a scolded child. I closed the door and sat on the bed, feeling the heat rise in my neck, the humiliation, the contained rage. But I stayed quiet. I took out my cell phone from the nightstand. I put it on silent. I set it on my dresser, strategically propped against a book, with the camera aimed at the partially open door. I started recording. If my years as a teacher had taught me anything, it was this. When someone is hurting you, document. Words are forgotten. Witnesses change their stories. But a video doesn't lie. At 6 o'clock in the evening, the guests started to arrive. First, Claire's parents, Walter and Beatrice. Yes, that was her name. And believe me, it was perfect for how insufferable she was. Beatrice entered wearing a floral dress and expensive sunglasses, carrying a cake from a fancy bakery downtown. She looked around the living room with a critical eye, as if judging if it was all up to her standards. "Oh, honey, it looks wonderful. You can tell you have great taste." "Your great taste?" "In my house, with my furniture shoved into corners." Then Claire's sister, Megan, arrived with her husband and 2 spoiled kids, who immediately started running through the house, screaming like wild animals. One of them knocked over my African violet. No one said a word. They didn't even pick it up. I stood in the hallway, dressed in my Sunday blouse and pearl earrings, waiting for someone to greet me. No one did. Claire walked right past me, as if I were part of the wall. Walter glanced at me and nodded, but said nothing. Beatrice flat out ignored me. Ryan? Ryan was too busy opening bottles of wine and putting on music. I sat in the corner chair, the one they had shoved next to the bookcase, and I watched. The dining room table was filled with food I hadn't cooked. Sushi, fine cuts of meat, gourmet salads, bottles of wine that cost more than $50 each, artisanal bread, French desserts, all paid for with the money they supposedly didn't have, the same money that justified them not paying me fair rent. "A toast to my husband." Claire raised her glass. to his 35 years, and to this being the start of our best chapter together. Our best chapter. As if I hadn't been there for his first 35 years. As if I hadn't given birth to him, raised him, educated him, supported him when he was unemployed, consoled him when his girlfriends left him. Everyone toasted. Glasses clinked. Laughter filled the room. And no one, absolutely no one, toasted me. Then Beatrice, with 3 glasses of wine in her and that condescending tone of people who think they're superior, dropped the bomb. "Oh, Claire, it's so good you two are so patient. Not everyone can stand living with their mother-in-law, right?" She laughed that fake laugh that made my skin crawl. "They must be so grateful to you. Not all modern kids sacrifice like this, taking care of their parents instead of dumping them somewhere. Sacrifice. Taking care of. As if I were the burden." Claire smiled, lowering her gaze with false modesty. "Oh, my mother-in-law, she does what she can. It's hard at her age, right? But we manage, with patience." Mother-in-law. That word, which had sounded affectionate in the first few months, was now just poison wrapped in honey. "It's just," Megan chimed in, pouring more wine. "I told my husband, when his mom gets old, no way is she moving in with us. Straight to a nursing home. It's healthier for everyone." Laughter erupted. Ryan smiled uncomfortably, but said nothing. "Nothing." Walter added his 2 cents. "Well, I think it's fine to help, up to a point. But there comes a time when the old folks have to understand their cycle is over. Let the young people live." The old folks. They talked about me as if I weren't there, like I was an object to be dealt with eventually. Beatrice looked directly at me for the first time all night. "Right, Eleanor? You understand they need their space. They're young. They have dreams. They can't be burdened with." "Well, you understand." I stayed quiet. I smiled. That smile I had perfected over weeks of enduring insults disguised as advice. And I let them keep talking, because my cell phone was still recording. Every word, every cruel laugh, every dismissive comment. Claire brought out the cake. They sang "Happy Birthday." Ryan blew out the candles. He made a wish. They asked him what he wished for. And he, looking at Claire with loving eyes, said, "I wish that we'll have our own house soon, so we can start our real life. Our real life." As if these 3 years had been a lie. As if I were a temporary obstacle. I stood up from my chair. My legs were shaking, but I kept my back straight. 40 years of standing in front of 30 kids every day had taught me how to have presence. "I'm going to my room. Enjoy your party." No one stopped me. No one said, "Don't go." No one asked if I was okay. Claire just muttered, "Rest well." I closed my bedroom door. I stopped the recording. 3 hours and 40 minutes of documented humiliation. I sat on the bed with the phone in my hands. I hit play. I listened to it all again. And this time, I didn't feel sadness. I felt clarity, because they had just given me exactly what I needed. Irrefutable evidence that I wasn't imagining things, that it wasn't my fault, that this was abuse, disguised as living together. I saved the video to the cloud. I made 3 backup copies. I sent one to Patrick Nolan's email with the subject, "Urgent." Additional evidence. Then I lay down. And for the first time in months, I slept soundly. Because I wasn't alone in this war anymore. I had allies. I had proof. And above all, I had a plan. What they didn't know was that they had just dug their own graves, and I was about to hand them the shovel. The next day, I did something that Claire will never forget. Something as simple as a letter, but as devastating as an earthquake. When Claire read that letter, I saw the color drain from her face. Because the right words, said at the right time, are worth more than 1,000 screams. Sunday morning was quiet. Too quiet. That uncomfortable stillness after a storm, when the air still smells like electricity and destruction. Ryan and Claire didn't come out of their room until 11. I had already been awake for 2 hours. I'd had my coffee. I'd watered the few plants I had left. And I had done something I'd been planning all night. On the dining room table, among the remains of the party that no one had cleaned up, I saw the padlock. They had just left it there, next to the empty bottles and dirty plates. As if it were trash. as if it hadn't been the symbol of my humiliation just days before. I picked it up. It was light, cheap, the kind of lock you buy at any hardware store for $5. Nothing special, but to me, it represented a line that had been crossed. I went to the kitchen drawer, where I kept my tools. I took out a pair of old pliers that Arthur used to use for home repairs. The lock gave way easily, too easily. With a little force and the right angle, the shackle popped open without a problem. I smiled. That symbolic lock, so powerful in Claire's mind, was useless. It was pure theater, an illusion of control. Just like everything else she had built in this house, I left the broken padlock on the kitchen counter, where she would see it. But that wasn't enough. I needed to send a clearer message, a more permanent one. I went to my room. I took out a pen and paper, not the computer, not a text message, a handwritten letter. Because there's something about handwriting that makes words heavier, makes them dig deeper. I sat at my desk, the same one where I had graded papers for decades, and I wrote, not with rage, with surgical precision. Claire, I've decided to say nothing about the lock, because I understand you come from a family where distrust is normal. I don't blame you for that. Everyone carries their own baggage and ways of seeing the world, but I want you to know something very important. Something you may have forgotten, or perhaps were never told clearly. This house has an owner, and that owner is me. The documents are in my name. Original, notarized deeds, impossible to change without my physical presence, my valid ID, and my thumbprint. My lawyer, Mr. Patrick Nolan, has certified copies of everything. And believe me when I say, he is very good at what he does. I know about the power of attorney you wanted me to sign 6 months ago. That paper you accidentally left on the table with the important parts highlighted in yellow. I'm not stupid, Claire. I'm a teacher. I taught over 800 children to read. I can read between the lines better than you can imagine. I also know about the $80,000 my son borrowed from me for a down payment on a house. The house that never existed, the money that became the car you drive every day. And I know what you said about me last night. I recorded every word. This isn't a threat, it's information. Information you need to have to make better decisions from now on. This is your only warning. If you ever try to put another lock on me, literally or metaphorically, you will meet the Eleanor you don't want to meet. The one who doesn't smile. The one who doesn't stay silent. The one who has documents, lawyers, and, above all, the truth on her side. Think very carefully before your next move. With the politeness I have left, Eleanor Monica Reynolds, legal owner of this property. I folded the letter into 3 perfect sections. I put it in a manila envelope, and in clear handwriting, I wrote on the front, "For Claire, personal and confidential." I went to the pantry. The door was still there, without a lock, open as it always should have been. I taped the envelope to the center, at eye level, with thick packing tape. Impossible to miss. Then I went to the kitchen. I made a chamomile tea and sat down to wait. I didn't have to wait long. At 11:30, I heard footsteps. Claire dragged herself into the kitchen, hair messy, looking hungover. She went straight for the coffee maker. Then she saw it, the broken lock on the counter. She stopped cold. She picked it up, examined it, frowned. Then she looked toward the pantry, and there was the envelope. Big. Manila. With her name on it. I saw her turn pale before she even opened it. She grabbed the envelope with trembling hands. She tore it open, ripping the paper. She pulled out the letter, and she began to read. I kept drinking my tea, seemingly calm, seemingly distracted by looking out the window at the garden. But I was watching her reflection in the glass. I saw her eyes widen with every line. I saw her mouth form a small O of shock. I saw her hands begin to tremble by the time she was halfway through. When she finished reading, she folded the letter slowly. She looked at me. I didn't look away from the garden. Eleanor. Her voice was small, scared. I didn't answer. Eleanor. This is a misunderstanding. I turned my head slowly. I looked her in the eyes, and I didn't smile. For the first time in 3 years, I didn't smile. Which part is a misunderstanding? The lock I saw with my own eyes? The money, for which I have your husband's bank statement as proof? Or the things you said about me last night, recorded on video with a date and timestamp? She was speechless. The letter was shaking in her hands. We were just. Save it. My voice was firm, cold. I don't want explanations. I want you to understand that this house is mine, that I decide who lives here and under what conditions. And if you ever disrespect me again, in any way, you're gone. No discussion, no second chances. But Ryan is my son, and he will always have my love. But this house is mine, and in my house, you will be respectful. Or you will find somewhere else to live. The silence that followed was thick, heavy, electric. Claire clutched the letter to her chest. For a moment, I thought she would cry, or scream, or make one of those dramatic scenes she loved so much. But she did none of those things. She just nodded, barely, almost imperceptibly, and she went to her room without another word. I heard the door close, then muffled voices, Ryan asking what was wrong, Claire crying, explaining, maybe exaggerating. I didn't care. For the first time in years, I felt like I had reclaimed something. Not my whole house, not my whole life, but a small, vital piece of my dignity. I finished my tea. I washed my cup, and I went for a walk in the neighborhood park, where no one knew me, where no one judged me, where I could breathe without feeling like my air was being rationed. When I came back 2 hours later, the manila envelope was gone from the pantry. The broken lock was still on the counter, but now there was a note next to it, in Ryan's handwriting. "Mom, we need to talk." I picked up the note. I crumpled it in my fist. And I smiled, because finally, after 3 years of silence, my son wanted to talk, and I had a lot to say. That conversation changed everything, but not in the way I expected. They thought I was scared, but I was just waiting for the perfect moment. Ryan's note sat on the counter for 2 days. 2 full days where none of the 3 of us spoke a word beyond what was strictly necessary. "Good morning. Good night. Do you need the bathroom?" Nothing more. The house became a minefield where every step had to be measured, where every closing door sounded like a gunshot, where the silence was so dense you could almost cut it with a knife. Claire avoided my gaze. When we crossed paths in the kitchen, she'd grab what she needed and leave quickly, like a frightened mouse. She no longer played her music at full volume. She no longer reorganized my things without permission. She no longer made cutting remarks disguised as jokes. For the first time in 3 years, there was fear in her eyes when she looked at me. And I'm not going to lie. A dark part of me enjoyed that fear, but I knew this was temporary. That the initial shock would turn into resentment. That the resentment would become a strategy. That Claire was not the type to give up easily. So, I didn't give up either. I started documenting everything. Everything. I bought a new composition book from the corner store. Green, spiral bound. On the first page, I wrote, "Household Expense Ledger, April 2025. And I started to note every dollar that came out of my pocket. Electric, $212. Water, $84. Gas, $120. Property tax, $800. Groceries, $600. Internet, $79. Phone, $30. Total I was paying, over $1,800 a month. Ryan and Claire's contribution, $200. The numbers didn't lie. I was subsidizing their life to the tune of over $1,600 a month. And that wasn't even counting the space, the furniture, the appliances, the use of the car they sometimes took without asking. But numbers weren't enough. I needed more. I started recording conversations. Not all the time, just when something important was happening. My cell phone, always in my apron pocket, in audio recording mode, discreet. Like that Thursday afternoon when I heard Claire talking on the phone on the patio. She thought I had gone out. She didn't know I'd come back for my sweater. "No, Mom, I'm not exaggerating. She's insufferable. Now she's playing the victim, like she's the queen of." She paused. Someone said something on the other end. "Well, yes, legally she's the owner. But after everything we've done for her, right? We've been caring for her for 3 years. Putting up with her old lady habits. Caring. Putting up with. Old lady." I saved the recording with the date and time. I also started making copies of everything. Receipts, bank statements, messages. I put them in a yellow folder that I hid at my friend Carol's house. "Are you okay, Eleanor?" she asked me as we had coffee in her kitchen, worried about the dark circles under my eyes. "You seem different." "I'm preparing, Carol," I said simply, "for something big." I didn't tell her everything, not yet, but I left her the folder with clear instructions. "If anything happens to me, you give this to Patrick Nolan. He'll know what to do." Carol squeezed my hand, scared. "Don't say things like that. Nothing's going to happen to you." "I know, but it's always better to be prepared." Meanwhile, at home, I continued my performance. I started faking it, faking mild dementia, strategic forgetfulness, calculated confusion. "Oh, have I eaten dinner already?" I'd ask at the dinner table, even though I'd eaten perfectly 2 hours before. "What day is it today?" I'd murmur, looking at the calendar with a frown. Where did I leave my glasses? I'd search all over the living room when they were hanging from my neck. I saw Claire and Ryan exchange looks. Looks that said, asterisk, see? It's starting. She's starting to lose it. Asterisk. Perfect. That's exactly what I wanted them to think. Because while they thought I was confused and weak, I was moving pieces on a chessboard they couldn't even see. I called Patrick 3 times that week. "I want to change my will," I told him in the first call. "Are you sure, Miss Reynolds?" "Completely." In the second call, I asked him to research if it was legal to record conversations in my own home. He confirmed that yes, anything recorded in my own private space was admissible as evidence. In the third call, I told him my plan. "It's risky," Patrick warned me. "But if you're determined, I support you. Just promise me you won't do anything without consulting me first." "I promise," I lied, because I already had the next step planned. On Friday night, Ryan finally knocked on my door. "Mom, can we talk?" "Come on, son." He walked in slowly, hands in his pockets. He sat on the edge of my bed, in the same spot he used to sit as a boy when he had nightmares. "About the letter." Claire showed me. He looked at the floor. "I didn't know you felt that way." That sentence almost made me laugh. Or cry. I couldn't tell if it was honest or just willful blindness. "Ryan, look at me." He looked up. He had Arthur's eyes. The same brown eyes with gold flecks that I fell in love with 40 years ago. "Did you really not know? Or did you not want to know?" He was silent. And in that silence, I found my answer. "The $80,000, he started. "I don't want to talk about that right now. But Mom, I'll pay you back. I swear. It's just that." "Ryan," my voice was firm. "I didn't come into this world to be paid back. I came to be respected. And in my own house, I don't feel respected. Do you understand the difference?" He nodded slowly. His eyes were glassy. "I'm sorry. I know. But I'm sorry isn't enough. I need to see changes. Real changes. What do you want me to do?" And there it was. The question I had been waiting for. "I want to live in peace in my house. I want your wife to treat me with basic respect. And I want you to start contributing fairly to the expenses. Or find your own place." He shot up. "Are you kicking us out?" "No. I'm giving you options. $5,000 a month in rent. It's cheap for this house. Or you can save up and find your own space, like you always said you were going to do." "But, Mom, we don't have that kind of money right now." "You have money for a luxury car, for expensive clothes, for salons and restaurants." My voice didn't waver. "You have money. You just don't want to spend it on me." He stood in the middle of the room, torn between 2 loyalties, and once again, he chose silence. "Think about it," I said softly. "You have 1 month." He left my room without another word. I didn't sleep that night. I stayed awake staring at the ceiling, wondering if I had been too harsh, if I had crossed a line I couldn't come back from. But when dawn broke and I saw the sun coming through my window, lighting up the photo of Arthur on my nightstand, I knew I had done the right thing. Because love without respect isn't love. It's habit. And I had been a habit for far too long. It was time to make a decision. What happened next surprised even me, because it turned out I wasn't the only one with secrets in this house. When I opened that chest in front of them, their eyes filled with greed. They didn't know it was a trap. The 1-month deadline I gave Ryan passed like sand through my fingers. 30 days where the tension in the house was so thick you could almost chew it. Claire continued to avoid me, but I noticed something different in her gaze when she thought I wasn't looking. She was calculating, planning, waiting. So was I. It was a Sunday afternoon, one of those hot May afternoons where the air doesn't move and everything seems to stand still. I was in my room, reorganizing my summer closet. I took out old boxes, dresses I no longer wore, shoes saved from Arthur's time. And then, I accidentally left my bedroom door ajar. Just as Claire was walking down the hall, I heard her footsteps stop. Then, that held breath of someone who is seeing something they shouldn't be, but can't look away. In my hands, I held the velvet-lined chest. It was beautiful, I'll admit. About 16 inches long by 10 inches wide. The burgundy velvet was worn at the corners, but it still held that deep, almost blood-red color that gave it an air of mystery. It had gold engravings on the lid, intertwined initials that were barely visible. It had been my grandmother's, passed to my mother, and then to me. Inside, I kept the family jewels. There weren't many. We weren't rich, but each piece had history, weight, and value, both sentimental and economic. I opened the chest slowly, like someone unveiling a treasure, knowing full well that Claire was watching me from the hallway. I took out the pearl necklace. 36 natural pearls, irregular, with that creamy luster that only real pearls have. Arthur had given it to me for our 20th anniversary. He had saved for 2 years to buy it. Then, the gold earrings with small, genuine emeralds, heirlooms from my grandmother, who received them from her own mother. The brooch, Art Deco, silver, and onyx. A piece from the 1930s that my mother wore on special occasions and was worth, according to the last appraisal I had 10 years ago, about $2,000. And finally, the ring. The engagement ring Arthur gave me under the cherry blossoms in Washington Park. White gold with a small, bright diamond surrounded by tiny sapphires. I placed them on my bed, one by one, admiring them in the light from the window. And then, as if just noticing her presence, I turned toward the door. "Oh, Claire, I didn't see you there." She took a step forward, her eyes fixed on the jewels. She wasn't even pretending to be subtle anymore. "Is that real?" I smiled, that proud grandmother's smile showing off her treasures. "Yes, dear. They're family heirlooms. They've been with us for generations." I picked up the pearl necklace and let it run through my fingers. "This necklace is almost 50 years old. The pearls are natural, see? Not like the cultivated ones they have now, all uniform." Claire came closer, hypnotized. "Can I?" She held out her hand. I gave her the necklace. She took it with exaggerated care, like someone holding something priceless, which in truth it was. "It's beautiful," she murmured. Her eyes were shining in a way that reminded me of a child in front of a candy store window. "It must be worth a lot." "Well, I've never had it appraised to sell. But yes, I suppose so." The old appraisal said that, altogether, it was worth about $20,000. But that was 10 years ago. Who knows now? I saw her swallow hard. I saw how her fingers caressed the pearls with a reverence mixed with greed. "And this will someday be Ryan's." I finished the sentence for her. "Well, yours. When I'm gone, of course. It's for the family." Something changed in her expression. A light switched on in her eyes. A dangerous light that I knew very well, because I'd seen it in parents when they discovered a teacher had something they wanted. "Where do you keep something so valuable?" she asked, trying to sound casual. "Right here, in my closet. I've always kept it here." I faked a worried look. Although, lately I've been thinking, maybe I should put it in a safe deposit box, just in case. "Yes, that would be safer," she said quickly. "I can help you take it to the bank, if you want." I bet she could. "Oh dear, that's so kind. Yes, maybe one of these days we'll do that together." I gently took the necklace from her and put everything back in the chest. I locked it with the small key that hung from a chain. Claire followed my every move with her eyes. "Well, I'll let you rest," she said finally, but her feet didn't move. She kept staring at the chest as if memorizing it. When she finally left, I waited 5 minutes. Then I left my room and walked casually through the living room. Claire was on the sofa with her phone, but she wasn't watching videos or on social media. She was on Google. I read the searches in her screen's reflection from the hallway mirror. Natural pearl necklace price. Antique jewelry value. Family heirloom inheritance, who inherits. I smiled to myself and kept walking. For the next few days, Claire changed completely. Suddenly, she was kind, helpful. She asked if I needed help with the groceries. She offered to make me tea. She even tried to cook something special for me, though it was terrible. "Eleanor," she said one Wednesday afternoon, her voice sweet as poisoned honey, "have you thought more about the bank? I have time tomorrow. We could go together to open the safe deposit box." "Oh, yes, but I don't know. I'm worried they'll ask for a lot of paperwork." "Don't you worry. I'll help you with everything. I can even put my name on the box, too, so that if anything happens to you, we'll have access." You know, for Ryan. There it was. The real motive. "What a good idea," I said, faking innocence. "Let me think about it." But I didn't think. Instead, I called Patrick. She took the bait. I told him on the phone that night, locked in my bathroom with the water running so they wouldn't hear me. "Are you sure about this, Miss Reynolds?" "It's a risk." "I know, but I need her to show her true colors. And this is perfect. Do you want me to prepare the documents?" "Yes, but with the clause we discussed." The next day, I told Claire I had made the appointment at the bank for Friday. Her face lit up like a Christmas tree. "Perfect. I'll go with you. Don't you worry about a thing." Friday came. We went to the bank. We opened a safe deposit box. We put the chest with the jewels inside. And we signed the papers. What Claire didn't know, because she didn't read the fine print that the bank officer explained quickly and she signed without paying attention, was that this box required 2 keys to be opened. I had one. Patrick Nolan had the other, with very specific legal instructions. It could only be opened if I died of natural causes, certified by doctors, and after a complete notary review of my final will. If anything happened to me suspiciously, the box was automatically frozen and its contents would become part of a legal investigation. Claire had access to the box. Technically, her name was on the papers, but she couldn't open it without me. And if I died, she couldn't open it either, without going through a legal process that would expose any irregularity. It was the perfect trap. We left the bank. Claire was happy, thinking she had won something, that she had secured her future. She didn't know she had just signed her own sentence, because I wasn't just protecting myself from her. I was protecting myself from any accident that might conveniently happen to me. And above all, I was creating evidence of her true character, evidence I would need very soon. What happened next was so fast, not even I was prepared for it. Because Claire made a mistake that changed everything. It was a Saturday morning when it all exploded. And I made sure there were witnesses. The calm after the bank visit lasted exactly 12 days. 12 days where Claire acted like the perfect daughter-in-law. She'd ask about my health. She'd offer to take me to the doctor. She even gave me a wool shawl so you don't get cold at night. I accepted it all with smiles and thank yous. But inside, I was preparing. Because I knew this was the eye of the hurricane. That deceptive stillness before all hell breaks loose. And I was right. On Thursday night, while I was pretending to be asleep, I heard voices from Ryan and Claire's room. They were arguing, quietly, but loud enough for me to catch stray words. "Can't go on like this. House should be ours. She's old. How much longer?" The notary said we can. My heart sped up. I got up silently, barefoot, and put my cell phone on audio recording mode against the wall we shared. The app Patrick had recommended amplified the sound. What I heard froze my blood. "My cousin works at a nursing home," Claire was saying. "He says with a doctor's certificate saying she can't take care of herself anymore, we can commit her, and the house would be free." "I don't know, Claire. She's my mom." "So what?" "She's been in the way for years. Look at us, Ryan. We can't have kids because we live with your mother. We can't have our own life. This house should have been ours when your dad died. But legally, there are ways. My uncle is a lawyer. He says with a power of attorney and a diagnosis of senile dementia, we can take control of her assets. And you've seen how she is lately. She forgets things. She confuses the days. Even the doctor could certify that she's not well. I felt nauseous. Not because of what they were planning, but because of how well my performance had worked. Too well. I don't know if I can do that. Ryan's voice was weak, hesitant, but not scandalized. Not outraged. Like a son defending his mother should be. Oh, Ryan, don't be a coward. It's for our own good, for our future. Besides, she'll be taken care of in the home. It's better for everyone. The silence that followed was worse than any word, because it meant Ryan was considering it. My own son was considering locking me away to get my house. I saved the recording. I uploaded it to the cloud, to 3 different email addresses, and then I knew it was time. I couldn't wait any longer. Friday morning, I called my 2 daughters. Sarah, Emily. I need you to come to the house tomorrow, at 10 in the morning. It's urgent. Are you okay, Mom? Sarah asked, alarmed. I'm fine, but I need you here, and bring your husbands. It's important. Then, I called Patrick. It's time. Are you sure? Completely. Prepare everything we discussed. The full documentation? All of it. And I need you here tomorrow at 10, with the notary, if possible. Understood, Ms. Reynolds? Finally, I called my friend Carol. I need you here tomorrow, as a witness, and bring your phone, fully charged. What are you going to do, Eleanor? I'm going to get my life back. Saturday dawned clear. One of those days where the sky is so blue it hurts to look at. I got up early. I put on my best blouse, the blue one with white flowers that Arthur gave me for our last anniversary. I put on my pearl earrings. I did my hair carefully. If this was going to be a battle, I would enter it like a queen. At 9:30, they started to arrive. First, Sarah, with her husband, Robert. My eldest daughter, with that worried look she's had since she was a little girl. Mom, what's going on? Wait until everyone is here, honey. Then, Emily with her husband, Javier, and my 2 grandchildren. The kids ran to hug me. Grandma! We haven't seen you in so long. I know, my loves. I know. Carol arrived right on time with a box of pastries, which she left on the dining room table. And finally, Patrick Nolan, with his leather briefcase, and an older gentleman in a suit, whom he introduced as Mr. Mendez, the notary. Ryan and Claire were in the kitchen, having breakfast. When they saw so many people walk in, their faces changed. What is this? Claire asked, standing up. It's a family meeting, I said calmly. Sit down, everyone. I have something important to say. We arranged ourselves in the living room. I took the main armchair, the one that had been Arthur's. My daughters sat on either side. Patrick and the notary stood beside me. The others spread out on chairs brought from the dining room. Claire and Ryan remained standing, tense, like cornered animals. You can sit, I repeated. It wasn't a suggestion. They sat slowly on the gray sofa they had bought. I took a deep breath, and I began. I've gathered you all here because I need you to hear this. And I need witnesses to what I'm about to say. I took out my cell phone. I connected it to the Bluetooth speaker and played the recording from Thursday night. Claire's voice filled the living room. With a doctor's certificate, we can commit her. I saw the color drain from Ryan's face. I saw Claire's mouth open, but no sound came out. Sarah put her hand to her mouth. Emily started to cry. I let the recording play to the end, to the part where Ryan didn't say no, where he just stayed silent, complicit. When it finished, the silence in the room was absolute. Mom, Ryan tried to speak. I held up my hand. I'm not finished. This isn't all. I pulled out the yellow folder I had kept at Carol's house. I opened it on the coffee table. Here are all the receipts for this house for the last 3 years. Electric, water, gas, property taxes, maintenance. All paid by me, with my $2,500 a month pension. I put another document on top. Here is the bank statement that proves the $80,000 I lent for a down payment on a house was used to buy a luxury car. A car I have never used, that I have never even been offered a ride in. Another document. And here are the screenshots of the text messages between Claire and her sister, where she says, and I quote, "Just a few more months of putting up with the old woman, and this house is ours." Claire jumped to her feet. You spied on my phone? That's illegal. Patrick spoke for the first time, his voice professional and cold. Actually, ma'am, everything in this folder was obtained legally. The recordings were made on Miss.com, Reynolds's private property, where she has every right to record. The documents are copies of originals, and the messages were photographed on a laptop your husband left open in a common area of the house. Claire turned to Ryan. Say something. Don't just sit there. But Ryan said nothing. He was staring at the floor, his eyes glassy. I continued, because I still wasn't finished. I want you to know, I said, looking directly at Ryan, that this house will never be yours as long as I live. I have already modified my will. If anything happens to me, the house is to be divided only between Sarah and Emily. Ryan can only inherit his share if he first repays the $80,000 he owes me. If he does not repay it before my death, his share is nullified. Mr. Mendez, the notary, held up a document. Here is the updated will, signed and certified 3 days ago. It is completely legal and binding. Ryan finally looked up. He had tears in his eyes. Mom, I never wanted. Never wanted what, Ryan? Never wanted to stay quiet while your wife planned to lock me away? Never wanted to lie to me about the money? Never wanted to make me feel invisible in my own home? My voice cracked, but I held firm. I'm going to give you one option. One. You have 30 days to get out of this house. I can lend you $5,000 for a deposit on an apartment. It's more than you deserve, but I am your mother, and I won't leave you on the street. This is ridiculous, Claire yelled. You can't just kick us out. Patrick intervened again. He can, ma'am. This is his house. You have no lease. You pay no rent. Legally, you are guests who have overstayed their welcome. If you are not gone voluntarily in 30 days, we will proceed with a legal eviction. And with this evidence, believe me, we will win. Quickly. Claire opened her mouth. Closed it. Opened it again. But no coherent sound came out. Ryan, my son, the boy who once promised to build me a huge house, broke down and cried, Mom, forgive me, please. And there, watching my son weep, I felt something inside me break too. But there was no turning back. What they failed to understand was simple. Love isn't begged for, it's earned, and it's lost. And they had lost it a long time ago. Now, I was just taking back what was always mine. My dignity. What happened in those 30 days was something I will never forget. For better and for worse, I gave them one last chance. Leave with dignity, or leave in shame. They chose. But it was already too late for pride. The 30 days that followed that meeting were the strangest of my life. The house became a divided space, as if an invisible line separated enemy territories. They were in their room. I was in mine. And in between, a silence so heavy it hurt to breathe. Claire never spoke another word to me. Not one. When we crossed paths in the kitchen, she'd grab what she needed and leave like a bat out of hell. Her eyes shot daggers of hate at me every time she saw me. She no longer faked kindness. There were no more masks. And in a twisted way, that gave me peace. Because at least we were finally being honest. But Ryan was different. My son became a ghost, wandering the house with slumped shoulders and a lost gaze. He lost weight. He stopped taking care of his appearance. Sometimes I'd find him sitting in the garden, staring at Arthur's plants, but not really seeing anything. One afternoon, 11 days after the meeting, he knocked on my door. Mom, can I come in? I was embroidering a tablecloth, an activity that always calmed my nerves. I put the needle down. Come in. He walked in slowly, as if he were afraid of breaking something. He just stood in the middle of the room, hands in his pockets. I want you to know, we found an apartment. In the Capitol Hill neighborhood, it has 2 bedrooms. It's nice. I'm glad. He nodded. But he didn't leave. There was something else he wanted to say, and he didn't know how. Mom, I never wanted things to get to this point. I put the embroidery in my lap. I looked him directly in the eyes. Those eyes of Arthur's that once looked at me with childish adoration. But they did, didn't they? Yes, his voice broke. And it's my fault, not Claire's. Mine. Because I failed you. I let it all happen. I stayed quiet when I should have defended you. I felt something in my chest loosen, just a little. Why, Ryan? Why did you do this to me? He sat down on the floor, right there. Just like when he was a kid and would come to confess he'd broken something or gotten a bad grade. Tears rolled down his cheeks unchecked. Because I was scared. Scared of losing her. Claire has always been intense, demanding, and I thought if I didn't do what she wanted, she'd leave me, like the others. He wiped his face on his sleeve. I know it sounds pathetic. I know it's no excuse. But it's the truth. And me? You weren't afraid of losing me? I thought you'd always be there, that mothers always forgive, that I could do anything, and you'd still love me. The brutal honesty of that confession hit me like a stone. Because he was right, I had allowed it. I had allowed him to believe my love was unconditional to the point of self-destruction, that he could hurt me without consequence. A mother's love is big, Ryan, but it's not infinite. It has limits. And you crossed all of mine, he sobbed. A deep, racking sob. Like a child who finally understands that actions have real consequences. Will you ever be able to forgive me? That question hung in the air between us. The truth was, I didn't know the answer. Not yet. I don't know, son, but I know this. Forgiveness doesn't erase what happened. And even if I do forgive you one day, things will never go back to the way they were, because I've changed. And you'll have to change, too, if you want to get back any part of what you lost. He just sat there, on my bedroom floor, crying like I hadn't seen him cry since he was 8 years old and fell off his bike. And I let him cry. Because those tears were necessary. They were part of his education. The next few days were filled with boxes and moving tape. Ryan and Claire packed their things with mechanical movements. I stayed in my room most of the time, letting the process happen without my presence. Sarah and Emily came to help me put the house back in order afterward. We got rid of the gray furniture. We brought my old, story-filled furniture out of storage. We put the terracotta curtains back up. We rehung the paintings from Maine. Are you okay, Mom? Emily asked me, as we hung the family photos Claire had taken down. I'm sad, I admitted. But I'm also at peace. For the first time in years, I am at peace. On the 29th day, one day before the deadline, a moving truck arrived. Ryan and 2 movers cleared everything out. Clothes, furniture, boxes, that gray sofa I hated so much. Claire supervised it all with a face of controlled fury. She didn't say goodbye. She didn't even look at me. She got into the SUV, the one bought with my money, and left without a backward glance. Ryan was the last one out. He was carrying a box of photographs. He stopped at the door. Thanks for the $5,000. I'll pay you back, along with the other $80,000. I don't know when, but I will. Don't do it for me, Ryan. Do it for yourself. So you can learn that debts are paid, that promises are kept. He nodded, and then, in a small voice, he asked, Can I come visit you? Someday, when things are calmer. I thought about it. I really did. Call me in 6 months. If by then you've started to keep your word, if you've shown that you're changing, we can try to rebuild something. But it will be different. With boundaries, with respect. I understand. He moved as if to hug me. I tensed up. I wasn't ready, he noticed. He stopped. And instead, he just gave me a kiss on the forehead. I love you, Mom. And I'm sorry. I'm really sorry. And he left. I closed the door behind him. I leaned against the wood. And finally, after months of holding it in, of being strong, of being strategic, I let myself cry. I didn't cry for Ryan, or for Claire, or even for the lost money. I cried for the broken illusion of what could have been and never was. For the son I raised to be a good man, who somehow got lost along the way. For the years I would never get back. But I also cried with relief, because my house was finally mine again. The following months were for healing. I started inviting my friends over again on Thursdays. Carol, Linda, Susan. We'd have coffee and pastries at my table, without having to ask permission, without feeling like we were in the way. Sarah and Emily started coming over on Sundays with the grandkids. The house filled with the laughter of children again, with the smell of pot roast, with those long talks that only happen in families that truly love each other. I adopted a cat, a stray orange cat that showed up in my garden one afternoon. I named him Artie, because he had those same golden eyes as my husband and that same calm way of observing the world. And little by little, I started to remember who I was before I became the invisible woman in my own life. 6 months later, Ryan called. "Mom? I paid back the $5,000. I deposited it today, and I have $3,000 saved for the other amount. I know it's a long way to go, but I'm working on it. How are you, son?" There was a pause. "I'm better. Claire and I are in therapy. She's still angry with you. But at least she's working on understanding why she did what she did. And so am I. I'm learning to set boundaries, to not be so afraid. I'm glad. Can I see you? For coffee? Just for half an hour?" I thought about it, and this time the answer was easier. Yes. But just you. And at a coffee shop, not here. I'm not ready for you to be in this house yet. I understand. I love you, Mom. I love you too, son. But loving doesn't mean forgetting. It means remembering and choosing every day to rebuild what was broken. A year after that family meeting that changed everything, I'm sitting in my garden. The afternoon sun is warm on my face. Artie the cat is sleeping on my lap. My plants are blooming because I finally have time to care for them. Not everything is perfect. I still have hard days. Days where I miss the idea of what could have been. Days where I wonder if I was too harsh. But then I remember the lock, the humiliations, the nights I felt like a stranger in my own bed, and I know I did the right thing, because I got back something more valuable than a house. I got back my dignity, my peace, my right to live without fear, without guilt, without having to justify my existence. Ryan visits once a month. We have coffee. We talk. We've had 4 visits now, and each one is a little less awkward than the last. I don't know if we'll ever have the relationship we used to. Probably not. But we're building something new, something based on mutual respect, on clear boundaries, on a love that is no longer blind, but aware. And that's enough, because I learned something I should have learned a long time ago. True wealth isn't what you own. It's what you refuse to let them take from you. Your peace, your dignity, your right to live without apologizing for existing. And that, no one will ever take from me again. I share this story not for you to judge me or to applaud me. I share it because I know there are so many women out there living the same thing, feeling invisible in their own homes, putting up with it because they think it's what they're supposed to do. And I want you to know this. You don't have to put up with it. You don't have to be a martyr. You can set boundaries. You can say no. You can take your life back. It is never too late to defend yourself. It is never too late to choose yourself. I did it at 67 years old. And if I could do it, you can too. Don't let anyone make you feel small. Not your son, not your daughter-in-law, not anyone. You are enough. You have always been enough, and you deserve respect, especially in your own house, especially in your own life. Are you looking for more? Did this story strike a chord in your heart? Did it make you think? Did it give you the strength to do what you need to do? Leave me a comment. Tell me where you're listening from. Tell me if you're fighting your own battle. You are not alone. None of us are. Give this video a like if this story reminded you of your own worth. Subscribe to keep hearing stories of women who decided to stop being invisible. Because our voices matter. Our stories matter. And as long as there is someone willing to tell them, there is hope for all the rest. With love and respect, Eleanor. The end.